So in speaking with the government and talked to some voters up there, Doug LaMalfa was against Obama declaring Bears Ears and some other monuments protections under the federal law. And that was sort of a big deal to him and some voters. However, the Trump administration this week has decided that they're going to raise Shasta Dam and they don't care what the state thinks. And they're going to do it anyway. Article in the LA Times a couple days ago. Basically, Westland's water district, very powerful, one of the largest water districts in the state. Very powerful. Their head, chairperson, who was a former Republican Party member, he brought Trump out here in 2016 and wooed him down there, and then they brought him up to Redding, and now that person has been appointed to take care of projects for the Department of Interior. And the project that person wants to go forward with is the raising of Shasta Dam, which will in turn help Westland's water district and some growers in the Central Valley who have some almonds and some different crops. But that is I don't want to steal the question from you. I haven't even asked it yet. But that is, Oroville's sort of a resident, it's for residential use. But Shasta Dam is an agricultural use. And they want the public to pay for this. And they want the public to pay for this project. And that project was a New Deal project back in the day, I believe. Taxpayers around the country got together because we really needed some jobs here. Mm-hmm. And we really needed some agriculture economy. And we did it. It was a great thing. But we have a limit set for the state of how high we can have a dam, and it would be breaking state law. So it's sort of a two-part question of how do you feel about Shasta Dam? Because it's a discussion. Some people are for it. Some people are against the raising of it. There's a beautiful, pristine river behind it that would be impacted. It's protected by the Wild and Scenic Act, which they would have to do away with that act in order to do this. So some very extreme environmental things, some very extreme expensive projects to the taxpayer. And ultimately what I see is Westland's water district getting stealing the part of it. So, how do you feel about Shasta Dam, and how do you feel about the government kind of overseeing states when the states don't really approve the project?
So the deeper that you dig into this project, into what's going on right now with this, the more enraged that you will see me get. And this harkens back to our first question around injustice, because not only is this designed to benefit the Westlands Water District, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy is frantically putting an amendment into the appropriations bill that has to come out before next Friday, to make sure that the Westlands Water District doesn't have to pay anything for this infrastructure project. And so that really fires me up for a number of reasons. But it goes back to, when we take a step back and look at it at a broad level, our district is resource rich, but we're poor. We have water, we have timber, but 7 out of our 11 counties are in the 15 poorest counties in the state. Our median average income for a family is like $47,000, and the state is like $63,000. We're not doing well up here, and people up here feel forgotten, they feel left behind, and they feel, with good reason, like our resources are being stripped away from us and sold literally down the river, for other people's gain and for the enrichment of the richest among us. And so when I have conversations about water, I like to start and remind ourselves that water in California is a public trust resource. The California Constitution, Article 10, declares water a public trust use resource that will be used for the greatest benefit of the public. And for me, when I look at that, by the way, a couple weeks ago, I swore an oath to support and upholds the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. Frame that when I'm talking about
during
this.
During
my paper signing,
they
make you sign an oath. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. Very big moment for me. But so I really, really encourage us to be thinking about and looking at water policy through the lens of it being a public trust resource. And so if we're selling our water off to Southern California or to the Westlands Water District, and they are making millions and millions of dollars off those transfers, and we're not keeping any of that in this part of the district, to me, that is an injustice and a big problem. So I believe that we need to be reframing how we think about these transfers and these issues. We need to make sure that our water needs in this district are met. And we do need to be selling water. We do need to be transferring water. But the beneficiaries of those transfers have to be the communities and the people who live here. Orville's a great example of this. We're selling water it's going down to DWR, through DWR to all of the different state irrigation districts that are purchasing it and making money off of it. And yet the folks who live in Orville are at risk of a dam failure. They don't get discounts on their water. They don't get discounts on their power. For projects all over the country do, but they don't. And so really starting to look at how we can make sure that we capture some of the benefit of our resources and keep it here in the district is really, really important to me. To answer the first part of your question about Shasta Dam specifically, we need to look at conservation before we look at infrastructure, and we need to look at repairing old infrastructure before we look at building new infrastructure. In the same appropriations bill that we're seeing come through next week, they're slashing some of our conservation programs in terms of water. And I believe that's criminally negligent. And it comes from not understanding or not believing the fact that we are going to experience longer and more severe droughts. We're going to experience more and more different types of extreme weather events that are going to put us all at risk. And so moving forward, not only do we need to look at water as a public trust resource, but we have to be thinking about how we update our state's water infrastructure system to be flexible. We're using 19th century solutions for a 21st century problem, and we need to have a flexible and innovative and adaptive water system to account for some of the challenges that are going to be facing us with climate change.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You think about everything we have here in the North State. You alluded to, and Aaron talks about this a lot too. The paradox of plenty,
the resource curse,
is a big
paradox of plenty.
Yeah, is a big.
It's a good word for it.
Yeah,
and we did a lot of research on that, and look it up. The paradox of plenty, the resource curse, and basically. We're the sixth largest economy in the world, and we have some of the poorest districts in the country up here.
Makes no sense. Yep.
So there's a lot of places this happens. It's the mines in Rwanda. Everybody around them is very wealthy, and they are extremely poverty. Sinclair, Wyoming, where the largest oil refinery is, they pay the highest price of gas. This stuff doesn't make sense to me. So. Yeah, I can feel up here where there is a sense of wanting to break away a little bit, but there's different ways to do that. I mean, especially with this dam project. I mean, there's so many. There's Native American tribes up there. They have land that could be impacted. There's this pristine river. You're basically going to add 20 stories. I forget how many stories they're going to add to this thing. So you don't take a building from the 1920s and put another building on top of it. That doesn't. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but that sounds safe to me. Especially when you're forgoing the permits, when you're possibly forgoing some of the environmental impact reports, and I don't really trust these engineers on the government projects, especially when we have failing dams across the country and failing infrastructure. That they're just we just had a bridge just fall in Florida. So. These new construction projects seem to be, and it's happened here when they did the 99 overpass. They had bridge fall in effect. So there seems to be some construction failures on how they're doing these things. But I'm all about union jobs. I'm all about creating some good jobs. And it seems like we don't have coal mines here, but we're not going to bring back gold mining. But dams historically have brought some jobs and some good paying work assistance here, and a part of it has been a jobs program. Definitely Shasta Dam was part of that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think about it from the perspective of the paradox of plenty, where we have all these natural resources. We don't have the infrastructure in terms of a business infrastructure. I mean, These days you can work anywhere. If you're a knowledge worker, you're in IT or whatever the case may be, you can work anywhere you want in the world. And why not want to work in the North State? It's beautiful up here. This is one of the most beautiful, pristine parts of the world. I mean, it's amazing. So why can't we attract more business here, small business that'll grow into medium-sized business? I mean, those are the jobs we need and we want.
Yeah, I think we should be able to too. A big limiting factor though, when you get out of our urban hubs of Chico and Redding, is the lack of connectivity.
That's a big problem. Yep.
Folks are disconnected, without cell service, with very limited internet capabilities, and so some of those jobs that you were talking about require that kind of technology. That's a big issue we hear about when we travel around, and something that I believe some sort of public-private partnership could address and could work towards. A big thing for me when I think about jobs in the North State is thinking about and talking about career and technical education, because we have specific needs around our district of specific technical jobs that we can't get people trained up for fast enough. We don't have a really good workforce development program that's preparing the next generation of young people to step into some of these places. One of the biggest things that's surprised me that I've learned in the past 10 weeks is the state of our forests. And I was up in Susanville a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to foresters up there, and they said, we don't have the people trained up to be heavy equipment operators to do the sustainable forestry management that we need to keep our communities safe. And so how do we make sure that we are investing in the career and technical education of our young people, to make sure that they can step into those jobs? Not all young people want to go to college. The ones that do, I absolutely think we need to figure out a way to make sure that college is more affordable for them. But for the majority of folks, they want to get a good paying job. They want a dignified work that they like, that allows them to stay in their community. And so I think really investing in our career tech ed programs around the district and investing in our sustainable forestry management practices around the district is a no-brainer in terms of job creation, in terms of appropriate resource use, natural resource use, and in terms of climate change mitigation, which is a whole nother thing that we could talk about. If you wanted to ever talk about climate change and agriculture, one of the things that I like to talk about.
Let's get into that, because that's a good. We'll go off script. Why not?
I love it.
So what is it about those topics that drives you, that really makes you want to connect with people and help alleviate those problems here in the North State in District 1?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have really the heart of my campaign and the heart of my platform is around figuring out how we can regenerate our rural economies and how we can make sure that the 99% of our district that's rural is thriving, and there are jobs for young people, and that we can raise our median income. We can make sure that 1 in 4 of our kids aren't living in poverty. That's really the vision that I have. And I believe that regenerative agriculture and regenerative forestry is an amazing way to do that, to invest in our economies, to create jobs, but also to mitigate climate change, which is the largest threat facing humanity, bar none. Even if today we stopped use of all fossil fuels, we would still see over the next 100 years drastic and devastating climate change ramifications. And so we need a way to mitigate and to sequester some of the excess carbon that's in the atmosphere, and store it in the soil where it's actually a benefit to life.
The Republicans, Doug LaMalfa, will tell you that doesn't exist, though.
Yeah.
That this isn't an issue. It's something that we need to be worried about. We need to be not suboptimizing our economies through worrying about something that may or may not happen in many, many decades.
And that is the number one reason why you have to vote him out of office, and you have to vote him out this year. And you need to replace him with someone who, A, understands the science, but B, has an active plan and platform in place to make sure that we can mitigate it. And that person is me.